Let's look at how we can find the domain of f of x equals the square root of x squared minus 4x plus 3. So thinking back to chapter 1 and what we know about square root functions, we know that whatever is on the inside of this function cannot be less than 0. So the inside cannot be negative. So knowing that the inside cannot be negative, when we were finding domain, we would write an inequality, taking whatever the expression was on the inside, in this case x squared minus 4x plus 3, and setting that to be greater than or equal to 0. So this gives us a polynomial inequality that we need to solve in order to find the domain of the square root function. Because this is a quadratic, we can use our factoring skills, thinking about numbers that multiply to positive 3 but add to negative 4. We could rewrite the left-hand side as x minus 3 times x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. Since negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3, but negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. So picture the graph of this quadratic. We know that we're going to have horizontal intercepts when those factors are equal to 0. So when x minus 3 equals 0, or when x minus 1 is equal to 0. So at x equals 3 and x equals 1 are the points 3, 0, and 1, 0. So this is a quadratic function that's opening facing upward since it has a positive value, a equal to 1. So if you picture that graph, here's 1 and 3. We know that we have these horizontal intercepts at 1 and 3, and this is a quadratic. So just picture your parabola, your U-shaped graph that opens facing upward. You could also graph that function on your calculator or on Desmos. So now come back to the inequality problem and think about what we were trying to find. We wanted to know where this function was greater than or equal to 0. So the left side is above the x-axis, then it's down below, and then it's back to up above. So if we want to be greater than or equal to 0, we want to be above the x-axis. So that means we're interested in these x values on the left and these x values on the right, but we don't want those x values in between positive 1 and positive 3. So the solution to our inequality goes from negative infinity to 1 and 3 to infinity. And in this case, that solution is telling us the domain of our function f of x. So it's going to be the interval from negative infinity to positive 1 with a bracket, because it is okay to take the square root of 0. So if x is equal to 1, 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 3 is equal to 0. We can find the square root of 0. Or from 3 to infinity, also using a bracket with 3. So our original problem asked us to find the domain of a function. This fits with our solving polynomial inequality section because with a square root function we need to make sure that the inside is not negative. So writing this mathematically gives us an inequality that the quadratic expression on the inside must be greater than or equal to 0. We can factor the left-hand side and think about when those factors are equal to 0 to find our two horizontal intercepts. We know that our function is a U-shaped parabola opening upward because we have a equals 1 in our quadratic function. We are interested in where we are above the x-axis since we're looking at greater than, so the left side and the right side of the graphs are up above the x-axis, giving us a domain from negative infinity to 1 or 3 to infinity.